Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your mothers have practically built themselves.
It's Mad Dog Merv. Welcome to the Kit Hoarder's Stash. And today we are going to talk about a hoard of kits, but this is one that's really concerning, this subject. And that is, you folks have heard me talk about MRS Hobby here in Salt Lake City and how 2 years ago they opened up a second location. And it was in conjunction with Kit Links, which is a online a hobby shop. And because of that, they had a much greater buying power now and a much better selection of items. And really, with the size and the space and all they have on display, I consider it to be the best in the West, the best hobby shop in the West. Now, I have done a lot of work for MRS in their first location. Well, actually, their first location was in Sandy, Utah, and about 20 years ago or so, they moved again to a little bit farther south in Sandy, Utah. And this is their first location that you see here. Okay, I've done a lot of work at this shop, and I've done some videos at this shop, and it is still going to be open. However, they 2 years ago opened up this other shop in Salt Lake City on 460 Lonsdale Drive, and this is just an absolutely beautiful facility, and I'm quite smitten with it. Of course, a lot of my stuff is on display here, so of course I'm excited about that. However, times have been hard. I mean, you can see by these pictures how wonderful this hobby shop is. But this last year, times have been really hard. The economy, inflation is just really taking a bite out of things. And the hobby industry is kind of hunkering down because sales are just not where they really need to be in the hobby industry right now, all over the hobby industry. So a decision was made because of how things are trending right now, that they're going to go ahead and close up this shop and consolidate all of the items back to the Sandy store. So while MRS is not closing up by any stretch of the imagination, they've got a very viable store in the Sandy area of Salt Lake City. This store, which was primarily armor, aircraft, figures, things like that, near and dear to my heart, well, it's going to be closing up. Now, KitLinks still has part of the building, and KitLinks is going to continue to warehouse out of that building. So KitLinks is still in business. They're going strong. They're still going to be sharing inventory with MRS Hobby. Some of you remember that I have a couple of train layouts there on display at that store. And you can see KitLinks is right through the door, right through the big roll-up door here from the MRS Hobby Shop. And here's the owner, Doug. Doug Clements is a wonderful guy, great businessman. He's been doing this since the 80s. So I do not question his business acumen at all. He's really sharp and on top of things. But you can see this warehouse and all of the items that the store could draw on, so their inventory was huge. And yes, they still have access to that, but like I say, they aren't located in the other part of the building anymore like they were. Yeah, KitLinks definitely has a great warehouse here. So anyway, they will be able to supply MRS with all kinds of strange and interesting, neat accessories for those locals that will continue to go to MRS. And they are online as well, so you could shop through there. Now, my Halloween layout, I actually sold to a gentleman as we were trying to pack things up. And it looks like I've also sold my Polar Express layout as well to a gentleman while we were getting things packed up to move the store. So, good for me. It's unfortunate they won't be on display anymore, but they will go to a good home. So, for those of you who are local, for those of you who are coming to Salt Lake, hit up the MRS Hobby Shop in Sandy. Yes, they're still in business. Yes, they're very healthy. Yes, they're doing well. It's just really sad to see any hobby store, even if it's a second or third store for a company, have to close up. Now, that doesn't mean it's permanent. That means they may come back here in a year or two. We'll have to see how things go. But as you can see, the Sandy store is packed with models. So that part we don't have to worry about. Okay, folks. Well, thanks for joining us today. Again, I just wanted to make folks aware that MRS is closing down their second store. So have a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon.